faithfully delivering value and exploring great books from around the world. Hi, this is Sally here with the Book Talk. Today, I'm going to interpret this book for you, Pygmalion. This is a play by the Irish writer George Bernard Shaw, hailed as the greatest playwright since Shakespeare. Moreover, he was a social activist, political commentator, and music critic. He was born in Ireland in 1876 and moved to Britain. From the 1880s, he started writing plays, and until his death in 1950, he wrote over 60 works. In 1925, George Bernard Shaw was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. Shaw's Pygmalion was published in 1912 and is one of his most popular works. In the 1950s, it was adapted into the musical My Fair Lady, which became a global hit, playing over 2,000 shows in the US alone. Later, Hollywood made a movie based on it starring Audrey Hepburn. My Fair Lady, the English name is Pygmalion, so it's also known as Pygmalion. Pygmalion, sometimes called Pygmalion, is a person's name. He was a Greek king, and his story comes from the narrative poem Metamorphoses by the Roman poet Ovid. He deeply disliked the women of his time, thought they were loose and shameless, and vowed never to marry. Later, he created a statue of a woman based on his perfect ideal and named her Galatea. She loved this statue deeply and truly wished Galatea was a real woman. He prayed at the temple of the goddess Venus, and Venus was moved by his love. And when Pygmalion returned to his palace and kissed Galatea again, the statue's face turned red and her body softened. With body warmth, Galatea became a real woman. This is a romantic story. Many folks, after hearing this tale, marvel at love's power and maybe wish for such a miracle themselves. So, when Shaw introduced a play based on Pygmalion, people thought it'd be another romantic story. But Shaw's story isn't romantic at all. Instead, it's highly satirical. This is a 5-act play. Now, let me walk you through the main plot of this drama. The male protagonist is named Henry Higgins, an elderly gentleman with a unique profession. He's a phonetician. So, what exactly is phonetics? The 19th century witnessed rapid scientific development, especially in its later half. In developed nations like Britain, many in high society tried pioneering new disciplines and creating mind-blowing inventions. Professor Higgins was one such person. He specialized in human speech and developed his own notation system. He could transcribe anyone's accent using his symbols, then read those symbols like text and perfectly reproduce the accent. He believed phonetics was a legitimate science and considered himself a true scientist. Though phonetics did become a discipline over half a century later, when Western researchers released the first international phonetic alphabet in 1888. This marked an important milestone in 19th century phonetics, with systematic phonetics only taking shape in the 20th century. In Act 1, Professor Higgins appears at 11:15 p.m. in London's Covent Garden Piazza. Due to sudden, heavy rain, crowds take shelter under the church eaves, making casual conversation. Coming from all social diversity, everyone spoke with distinctive accents. Professor Higgins immediately began mimicking their accents, accurately identifying people's origins just by hearing them speak. He told one person, "You're from Chelsea," another, "You're from Hoxton," and a third, "Born in Cheltenham, attended Harrow, then Cambridge, later worked in India." Everyone was amazed, thinking Higgins miraculous. Amid this commotion, the heroine appears. Her name's Eliza, a flower girl, selling blooms in the crowd during the rainstorm, her speech thick with rustic tones. Higgins immediately identified her background by accent too, asking, "Why have you come here?" "You were born in Lisson Grove, quite far from here." The flower girl panicked, thinking Higgins was a spy who knew her secrets. Actually, her accent issue is really easy to pick up. In 19th century Britain, the so-called standard English accent had strict pronunciation requirements. Typically, acquired through training by affluent, well-educated Southern Britons. In contrast, the London accent refers to East Enders speech with vowels and consonants differing from standard, like not pronouncing the H consonant. That's how Eliza spoke. The male lead, Higgins, his name starts with H, which he doesn't pronounce, so it sounds like Iggins. After everyone left, only three remained under the church eaves. One is Professor Higgins, the other is the flower girl, and an expert in Indian dialects, Colonel Pickering. Higgins and Pickering observe the flower girl, Eliza. She looks about 20, perhaps not unattractive, but completely unappealing. She wore a long black coat, coarse apron, tattered shoes, a small black straw hat coated in dust and soot, rarely cleaned. Her hair underneath was messy, grayish yellow, teeth crooked, hardly noticeable. Higgins intimidated her. Her rustic accent will keep you inferior forever. Eliza cried out upon hearing this. Then Higgins frowned. Ugh, that pronunciation is hideous. If she keeps talking like this, she'll be destitute her whole life. On the street, Higgins gave the flower girl money. Overjoyed, she hailed a taxi. Her excitement amplified her rustic demeanor. Then Higgins joked with Pickering, "Bet you in 3 months I can transform her into an elegant duchess and present her at a garden party hosted by a foreign ambassador." Now, Ovid's love story protagonists, Pygmalion and Galatea, have both appeared. Pygmalion is Professor Higgins. Galatea is the flower girl. In Higgins' mind, shaping Eliza could achieve his vision of perfection, just as Pygmalion aimed to sculpt Galatea flawlessly. Of course, Higgins' motive isn't love, unlike the lovesick Pygmalion. Now, let's enter Act 2. The next day, Higgins invites Pickering to his lab, where they're discussing phonetics. Eliza comes requesting an audience. She heard Higgins' words last night. She's willing to learn, not to become a duchess, but only to have Higgins help her leave her miserable flower-selling life behind and get a decent job at a florist. And to Eliza's earnest request, Higgins responds with mockery, demands exorbitant fees to intimidate her, and threatens to chase her out with a broom. But Colonel Pickering becomes intrigued. He bets Higgins that if he can truly transform Eliza, he'll cover all experiment costs. Higgins finds this amusing and readily agrees. He declares, "All right, I'll show you how this slovenly woman in dirty rags living on the streets becomes a duchess." He orders the housekeeper to bathe and dress Eliza, adding that if she resists even slightly, she should be her. Colonel Pickering finds Higgins' words jarring. He seriously reminds Higgins, "Remember, we're gentlemen accountable for our words. Honor your promise. Never exploit her learning here to compromise her reputation." Higgins dismisses such warnings. He sarcastically retorts, "Oh, she's sacred and inviolable." We recognize this as expressing disdain toward women. He adds, "I've taught dozens of American millionairesses to speak, all stunning beauties. I'm long tested. Before me, they're just blocks of wood." The housekeeper present throughout then critiques Higgins. She says, "Though you're distinguished, you swear too much. Damn, bloody, hell." She tactfully notes, "Sir, you've said blooming several times today. Quite unrefined. Since you're reforming Eliza, you must set the example." Professor Higgins molds his ideal duchess not from love or artistic pursuit, but to satisfy his vanity. Simultaneously, he's incredibly undisciplined. In his view, being an expert scientist means he can speak recklessly without reproach. Thus emerges a vain and arrogant Pygmalion. Just then, Eliza's father appears. This down-and-out man tracked his daughter here. Alfred, an elderly dustman lacking education but silver-tongued, speaks incessantly and irrefutably. Higgins doesn't eject him immediately, wanting to study his accent. Alfred then shamelessly reveals his motive. "My daughter's here, so you ought to give me something." Higgins satisfies him with £5. As Act 2 closes, how does flower girl Eliza react to Professor Higgins' mockery? She responds authentically. Her authenticity is vulgarity. Drawing from Flower Girl experience, she knows she'll get no respect here. In Higgins' bathroom, her first bath with hot or cold taps, first heated towel rail, first soap bursting with spring blossom fragrance. When servants scorn her dirty clothes, Eliza loudly protests. Now I see why fancy ladies stay clean. Wish they'd watch how folks like us bathe. Spotting her father, she yells, "You old fraud, just here begging drink money." Now to Act 3. Months later, Higgins' mother hosts a party. Higgins arrives and abruptly tells his mother about the bet with Pickering. She declares, after months of training, tonight's party will showcase whether Eliza's truly transformed. The matriarch disapproves but lacks time to object. Guests arrive, several from Act One's rain shelter who'd seen Flower Girl Eliza. But when Eliza appears, they don't recognize her. The once ragged, foul-mouthed Eliza is completely reborn as an elegant, refined lady. Her gestures and walking posture all fit an elegant standard. Guided by Higgins, she approached the old lady, trying to say, "How do you do?" in a pedantically precise voice. But Mrs. Higgins, although Eliza had fixed her posture and accent, when a lady mentioned the recent flu, Eliza instantly showed her country girl roots again in the conversation. She said her aunt died in the flu, but she believed her aunt was done in. Those folks would do someone in for just a pin and a straw hat. She then talked about her dad's drinking, saying, "Dad often took 4 pence from Mom and went out to get plastered." Higgins quickly stood up and coughed loudly to hint that Eliza should stop right away. Topics like murder and alcoholism are totally off limits in high society. Even though Higgins tried to cover up by explaining that done in is a trendy way to say it, the guests around still felt super awkward. When Eliza was about to leave, a young guy present offered to walk her out. Eliza glared and said, "No bloody likely," meaning absolutely not. That phrase is really crude. The word blooming is also one Professor Higgins always says. This remark made everyone present widen their eyes. No, ironically, some young folks there, hearing Eliza's coarse language, thought it was new fashionable slang in high society and tried to copy it. After all the guests left, Higgins eagerly asked his mother, "So, can Eliza pass muster?" The old lady replied, "Silly boy, of course she can't pass muster. She's just your conceited masterpiece. Her pronunciation's fine, but what she says gives her away." Colonel Pickering nearby then asked, "So how to fix that? For example, remove the vulgar parts from her speech." The old lady dismissively said, "As long as she's with Higgins, she won't get rid of it." The old lady listed all her son's faults one by one, saying, "He has no manners and is rude to guests." Professor Higgins confidently swore to create a duchess. But although Eliza changed her accent and clothes, her vulgar vibe hasn't changed a bit. She blows her cover with just a few more words. Higgins is always arrogant and rude, but when his mom tears into him, he can't even lift his head. It's downright laughable. But folks like Higgins' mom, representing Britain's true upper class, are just as ridiculous a bunch. Their ears can't bear the slightest crude talk, but their fancy manners, just how do you do? Some chit-chat about the weather, and goodbye, when they meet. That high society life, just an empty, boring game. Their conversations have no real, meaningful topics at all. In Act 2, Shaw's satire zeroes in on Professor Higgins, his full-blown male chauvinism, disrespect for women, arrogance as a self-styled scientist, and all those double standards. But in Act 3, Shaw uses this dull salon to roast the entire upper crust. The elite pride themselves on elegant etiquette, poise, and speech, but honestly, they're all stiff and unnatural as heck. After Shaw rips off high society's mask, Higgins and Eliza need to hash it out, and Shaw tackles his big concern: how women find their place in a man's world. In Act 4, Higgins and Pickering head back to the lab, yammering on about the night's events. Eliza's no real duchess, but she rowed Pickering at the party. He says, "You won the bet. You transformed Eliza." But Higgins gripes, "I'm sick of those snobs. Those stuck-up duchesses are just fools. He's tipsy, staggering around for his slippers. Then Eliza walks up, quiet as a mouse, and places the slippers by Higgins' feet. But Higgins acts like she's invisible and keeps jawing to Pickering. Higgins, ignoring and teasing her. Eliza's had it up to here. When Higgins gets up hunting for slippers again, Eliza, furious, chucks both slippers right at his face. She lays into Higgins. I'm just your betting chip. I don't matter at all. My life means less to you than some stupid slippers. She tells Higgins, I used to sell flowers, but now you've made me a fancy lady. What the heck am I supposed to sell now? Higgins says, you could get married or work at that flower shop you wanted. Um, Even as he says this, he completely looks down on Eliza. Eliza retorts, I'm returning all the clothes you gave me. Dress your next girl in them. She also throws back everything Higgins bought her. After this, a smile spreads across Eliza's face. She feels she's finally gotten revenge. Um, the scene feels like a lover's breakup. But Higgins transformed Eliza just to satisfy his research, or really his vanity. Eliza sees through it. Her outburst isn't about betrayal, but erupting female independence. She refuses to be treated like an object. When Higgins says get married, Eliza detects his contempt and snaps, I won't sell myself. Hearing this, Higgins has to see Eliza differently. But Eliza doesn't care. That night, she quietly leaves Higgins' lab alone. The flower girl's tale seems over. Yet Act 5 brings a sudden twist. First twist, Eliza's father, Alfred, reappears. Like his daughter, he's decked out in flashy new clothes, looking like a runaway groom. He complains to Higgins, it's your fault. You made me gentry. How'd this happen? Turns out, Higgins' American millionaire friend wanted to start a moral reform league. Higgins jokingly called Dustman Alfred Doolittle Britain's most original moralist. The millionaire believed it, left Alfred $3,000 yearly in his will, on condition he gives 6 moral reform speeches. Alfred got windfall wealth. Now dressed fancy and about to marry, yet he acts miserable. He tells Higgins, I was happy before, needed cash, just ask someone. Now everyone asks me for money. That's it. A year ago, I only had 2 or 3 relatives in this world, and they didn't even want to talk to me. And now I've suddenly got 50 relatives. None of them ever held a proper job for a month, and I got to support all these folks. And now I have to learn middle-class English from you. Despite all the complaints, he finally admits that being rich is better than being poor. When he was broke, he couldn't even imagine where he'd be buried after death. The second twist happens with Eliza. She arrives too, appearing before everyone with an elegant demeanor. She comes to express her gratitude to Colonel Pickering. By now, she's different from her former vulgar self. Months with Professor Higgins and Colonel Pickering, plus some exposure to high society, have greatly changed Eliza's character. She's very calm. She says, although I was treated as an experiment by you 2 men, over this time, I've truly learned good manners and politeness in dealing with people from you, Colonel Pickering. I get it now. It's this attitude that makes a woman part of high society, not the accent or clothes. She adds, actually, I'm just like Professor Higgins. We both swear when we're ticked off. If it weren't for you being by my side, I wouldn't have seen how high society folks should truly act. Although Higgins clearly sees Eliza's spontaneous change, he still arrogantly says, nope, 3 weeks after I'm with her, she'll be back on the streets. The sharp conflicts from earlier in the play now seem to ease. On multiple levels, the clash between high society and common folks has softened. The poor, vulgar Alfred and his daughter have gained wealth. Another part shows true elegance. Because of being looked down on and mocked, Eliza's inner turmoil has eased, and she's at least starting to face her life rationally. Before we found Higgins laughable and Eliza very authentic, now Eliza clarifies by expressing gratitude to Pickering. Actually, she and Higgins share a common language because they both swear well, and the stage atmosphere gradually becomes all harmonious and joyful. Alfred announces publicly that he's dressed like this because he's about to get married, and he immediately invites Pickering and Higgins' mother to his wedding. After those three leave, Higgins and Eliza remain on stage, as if intentionally given privacy. Their final conversation is remarkably subtle. Neither directly says, "We could be together." Instead, each declares they can live perfectly well without the other. Higgins says, "Don't think me rude. I treat everyone this way. I'm equal with all humanity." Then he hints Eliza could return. "I wanted to make you a woman. Now I have. I like you this way." He habitually tries sending Eliza to buy ham and cheese, order gloves and ties, but Eliza just says, "Buy them yourself," and drifts away. The story ends. Pygmalion's conclusion remains deeply controversial. A century ago, British arts were steeped in romanticism. Any story with male or female leads would inevitably unite them. So, theaters marketed Pygmalion as a romance to attract audiences. When viewers found no romance, just polite small talk among the leads, and no union between leads, they felt cheated. Later productions often revised the ending, adding hints of potential romance. The 1938 film adaptation even had them marry. This feel-good ending clearly wasn't Shaw's intention. Precisely, Shaw used drama to explore social issues. Shaw's theatrical philosophy was influenced by his mentor, Ibsen. Ibsen, master of critical realism, championed art for real life. Similarly, Shaw saw art not as entertainment to laugh off, but as social commentary. What were Britain's main social issues then? Class rigidity and women's low status. Shaw addressed these through Pygmalion. He mocked men like Higgins through trivial details like napkins at dinner, ties at parties, and weather talk at banquets. He exposes high society's hypocrisy and boredom. And as Lucian noted, Shaw ripped off gentlemen and ladies' masks. More importantly, he redefined gender relations in drama. He subverted Pygmalion and Galatea's story, asking, "Do men truly have the right to shape women as they wish? And if a woman's image is molded by men, does she still have independence, freedom, or the right to choose her destiny?" Eliza's final choice reveals Shaw's intent. Equal love is impossible between creator Pygmalion and created Galatea. Eliza must face her destiny independently, not obey others' arrangements. This female independence, Shaw's core message, was so radical it terrified the ruling class. Many Shaw works were banned upon release, yet Pygmalion's influence remained widespread. Late 19th, early 20th century, British theater was full of frivolous romances and bourgeois tales. Shaw's sharp social satire, intense conflicts, and vivid language revolutionized it. When Eliza says she'll marry Freddie, Higgins snaps, "Nonsense! Marry an ambassador, marry an Indian viceroy or Irish governor," he adds. "Marry some love-struck fool. Let him kiss you with thick lips and kick you with heavy boots." Eliza fires back, "I could match you with one finger, yet I groveled letting you trample and curse me. Thinking of it makes me kick myself. You twist a girl's mind as easily as others twist arms." Such vibrant, impassioned dialogue moved theater beyond feel-good endings or exoticism, no longer offering shallow titillation, but true artistic tension. Shaw blended socially significant ideas with innovative techniques, nourishing minds and revolutionizing British drama. Well, you could say Shaw pulled off another historic breakthrough in 19th century theater. His works are now timeless classics in the world's literary vault. All right, that wraps up our take on Shaw's Pygmalion for you. Oh, the listening notes are under the audio. See you tomorrow.